they're back at it again. The gang is all together, the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office, and they're investigating what took place in order to try to make sure that everything is above board.
While I respect the FBI's process,
Liar! Liar!
our community's expectations are much different.
Now, you watch that video, you look at what is happening on that video, and what do you think I'm gonna say right now?
Gay!
The chances of us actually hearing the truth from this individual rather than some activist take on what took place is probably 0%.
So this is how liberty dies.
In the past, I have taken the time to go through all of, at least the vast majority of, the issues surrounding the George Floyd case and what the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office did as a result of that case and how much they botched that investigation. But it's important for us to revisit that now because you're likely going to see that all over again. Welcome to the show. My name is Uberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Well, just when you thought perhaps there might be some sliver of a chance for the atheist, the humanist, the secularist to fight with Scripture.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yet again, reality keeps on slapping us in the face and showing us how Scripture is totally right about everything. And Ecclesiastes 1:9 tells us there's nothing new under the sun, because who would have been able to tell you, to prophesy, and get so accurately that the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office would be investigating their second George Floyd event during a Trump administration? Because that's exactly what they're doing. Because right now, as I'm sure you're all aware, they are taking the time to investigate the ICE shooting of Renee Good. And they are investigating it to make sure that law enforcement isn't back at it again. So I do have to start the show in a pop culture manner and start it with a little bit of levity because of how ironic all of this is. And we'll just do this via music, because this is the first thing that comes to mind. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm a dad. So Backstreet's back, all right? And the boys are back in town. And because I'm a Christian, we need a Holy Trinity. So there's a third one, a third song that has back in the title. Baby Got Back, I guess, is the best I can come up with short notice. Anyway, they're back at it again. The gang is all together, and they're investigating what took place in order to try to make sure that everything is above board. Now, you may be saying to yourself, we've already seen everything we need to see. But of course, that isn't true if you live in Minneapolis, because who is going to waste a good crisis? Certainly not the Democrats.
Never waste a good crisis.
And so here they are again investigating this crisis in order to try to make something out of nothing for political gain. At least that's my opinion. And we'll go to the person who's in charge of investigating this right now, and we'll see what she has to say about it.
Based on a previous experience with FBI processes, we are concerned that the evidence obtained in an investigation that has only been conducted at the federal level will not be shared with our office for review. In the past, the FBI has invited us to see a high-level overview of their investigation, but we were prohibited from seeing the entire investigation or talking about what we saw in that PowerPoint publicly. While I respect the FBI's process, our community's expectations are much different in terms of transparency. This community expects to understand what the evidence is and the justification for any decision that might be made. To that end, I cannot overstate the importance of a local investigation, or at least access to the federal investigation by the BCA. Without it, we will not have the ability to be transparent with our community about the results of the expectation, or, as I said, any decision that might come of the review. And let me be clear, we have no preconceived opinion on what the evidence will show. Making a charging or decline decision in an officer-involved case requires us to evaluate the evidence in the context of complicated legal issues. For that reason, we cannot reach a conclusion about any outcome here. Our goal must be to ensure that a thorough investigation is completed at the local level so that our community can have transparency.
Now, after hearing, and most importantly, seeing that video, what do you think I'm going to say about what we just beheld? What would you say about it? And be honest. And I think we would all agree there's probably a 0% chance that the person you just heard is anything but a raging lesbian.
Why are you gay?
Now, already people in the comment section are going to get really upset for me for acknowledging this simple fact. And all I have to say to you is, oh, so only the left can talk about identity? Every time they come to the mic, they get to say, I stand here representing the indigenous, trans, furry, they, them identifying POCs of the world. This marginalized identity class is now speaking to all of you. So they're the only ones that can talk about identity, but we can't.
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic.
And the reason it's important is not because I'm trying to be mean, but simply because the chances of us actually hearing the truth from this individual rather than some activist take on what took place is probably 0%. And besides, we don't even have to guess about this. The Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office already absolutely screwed up the George Floyd investigation. So we already have a history with these people, so we don't need them coming behind the FBI to give us their version of events as though they're going to be more trustworthy than the FBI. And I think it's important to show this rather than just to take my word for it, because in the past, I have taken the time to go through all of, at least the vast majority of, the issues surrounding the George Floyd case and what the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office did as a result of that case and how much they botched that investigation. And because that kind of trickled out over time, it kind of lost its efficacy. But it's important for us to revisit that now because you're likely going to see that all over again. And so that you can understand going into this that you shouldn't trust them at all, I think it's important to rehash that. So here's a video I did in the past that will talk about the prosecutor's office and how they botched the George Floyd case.
Now, last Saturday marked the supposed anniversary of George Floyd's death, and Democrats like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the very talented and very honest Cori Bush all came out to celebrate, and they celebrated the only way they can, by reiterating erroneous claims that police are systemically racist against black people. Now, if you actually want to listen to somebody that will tell you the truth, I send you to my friend, Roland Fryer.
So what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
But now let's be realistic. Cori and company can't be expected to keep up with, all of the lies that they're telling, so it's important to state a couple of things up front. Floyd's death was tragic. How he died will always be a matter of contention. But like the media lies of COVID, there is a fact pattern that's very easy to follow, and should you desire to know the truth, you can. Probably the most explosive thing about the Floyd case that you won't hear is that within about 24 hours of the medical examiner receiving Floyd's case, the FBI oddly wanted to be involved and met with the medical examiner. Now, we don't know and won't ever know exactly what those meetings led to, but let's just say that it seems oddly suspicious, especially in light of the fact that shortly after that meeting, the Hennepin County prosecutor Amy Tamburino said this in a deposition. I called Dr. Baker, who was the medical examiner, early that morning to tell him about the case and to see if he would have performed the autopsy on Mr. Floyd. He called me later in the day on that Tuesday night, and he told me there was no medical findings that showed any injury to the vital structures of Mr. Floyd's neck. There were no medical indications of asphyxia or strangulation. He said to me, Amy, what happens when actual evidence doesn't match up with the public narrative or that everyone's decided on? This is the kind of case that ends careers. That damning deposition was also followed up by a sex discrimination and retaliation lawsuit that Amy Tamburino, the prosecutor in question, filed against the city, in which she won a $190,000 suit. Now, we don't know the details of that suit, but let's just say somebody be lying. Let's go to one last final piece in the aftermath of George Floyd's death that seems odd that we need to acknowledge. And that is the rhetoric of defund the police and how those mostly peaceful but fiery protests saw the evacuation of a police station ordered by the mayor of the city.
I made the decision to evacuate the 3rd precinct.
So here's my not so subtle accusation in light of the fact that the FBI was involved in this local case in Minneapolis very early on, the fact that the medical examiner left things out of his report, and the fact that upon deposition, Amy Tamburino said that the medical examiner was really conflicted about whether or not he should tell the truth. When you look at all of that and the fact that the mayor ceded a police precinct to a bunch of fiery but mostly peaceful protesters, it makes you wonder if this wasn't an inside job to try to create mass panic and chaos so that the Democratic Party could suggest that Donald Trump was unfit and look what's happening under his watch. And Donald Trump, of course, is a fascist racist and shouldn't be trusted, and we must vote him out of office in 2024. The fact that this is on the cusp of a major federal election should tell us something. And by the way, the Democratic Party has been doing this forever to try to secure the black vote, because Donald Trump happens to actually be pretty popular with black people. In fact, right now he's polling around 17%. So I wouldn't put it past these bunch of tyrants to try to shine as negative a light on Donald Trump as they could to create this racial tension in America and then blame him for it so simply they could win an election. By the way, this is also why Democrats in 2024 are amping up their efforts not to just go on the defensive to try to make sure that they maintain their voter bloc amongst blacks, but also they are actively attacking Christian evangelicals as Christian nationalists, because they know that one of the strongest voter blocs in the Republican Party are Christians. So they want to try to do as much damage to that voter bloc as they possibly can and extort people to try to vote for them because they have no morals. So here's why all of this matters. Not only because the truth matters and society is built upon the truth, and if we don't know the truth, we cannot function, but also because Voltaire said this: if you can convince people of absurdities, you can convince them to commit atrocities. The purpose of secularism wasn't ever, and I hope we know this, to bring about a more rational way of thinking. The arguments for God's existence are robust. If you don't agree, it's either because you don't have any idea what you're talking about, or you're lying. The purpose of secularism has been always not to create a more rational society, a more fact-based society, but to remove faith in God from a group of people so that they are easier to control. If you do not have a higher authority, you will gladly take the lesser authorities, especially in a time of crisis. In other words, believing nothing is a great way to get people to believe anything. And when the poop hits the fan, you will do whatever it takes to help your family and to end the chaos and to find a reprieve. That's why Hillary Clinton and her buddies love crisis, because it's a great opportunity.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Trust me, it's creeping up on you. Maybe you felt that the days ever since Christmas have been ticking by, day after day after day, quicker than they even were last year. And you're gonna have to decide, what will you do for your spouse? What will you do for your date on Valentine's Day? Well, I've got that all taken care of for you, and I can even give you a little bit of a discount. You need to check out sweetandsavoryclassroom.com, where you can take an online or in-person cooking class experience that will help you have some amazing food and a great date night. So go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com, scroll through a list of all their online courses and their upcoming classes, and then when you check out, use the promo code AnyThinker for a discount to let them know that we sent you, and then have an amazing Valentine's.
So if we're going to use George Floyd as a symbol, I'll say he's a symbol, all right, but he's a symbol of the depth of depravity that a bunch of greedy elitists will stoop to in order to secure power for themselves. And there is no limit to that sinfulness when they don't think God is watching. It's why we need him. This is why America has been and should remain a Christian nation steeped in Christian beliefs. If we persist in putting our faith in the government and in the people who occupy those positions of power, I can't help but believe that we should brace ourselves for more fiery but peaceful protests, because a people without hope are easy to control, which is why we need something bigger to believe in.
Alrighty, I hope that helps. And more than anything, what I hope it helps you do is realize that you shouldn't listen to anybody, whether it's right or left, and just accept what they have to say. In this world where we have to be our own gatekeepers with information, we're going to have to learn how to be discerning. We're going to have to remember in Proverbs 9 that the Lady Folly always tries to mimic and speak the same as the Lady Wisdom. And we must go beyond the superficial and dig down deep into the substance in order to make sure that we're not falling for the fact that folly likes to disguise itself as wisdom, or else it wouldn't be effective. So what is the real cure for two people looking at the same set of facts but coming away with two wildly different conclusions? To be honest with you, I don't know, except this. Perhaps we need to develop a sense of skepticism with all information that we hear and test everything and see if it holds up to scrutiny. I'm saying this is even true of Christianity because I think the best Christians have scrutinized their own faith and then have come away with a deeper and greater appreciation for the truth that is found in the Scripture. But I'm saying this for everything. We're going to have to get rid of confirmation bias one way or the other, and that is to be very careful every single time you come up with a conclusion that is already similar to what you would have come up with regardless of the facts. And to question yourself. Be skeptical about your own position, but most of all, be skeptical about the fact that the vast majority of people in our society lie on a regular basis. And if that's true, and it is, then we're going to need a lot of help to make sure that we take that small gate in that narrow way that leads to life. And I only know of one person who can help you do that. So by God's grace and with his help, flee all hackery, preconceived notion, confirmation bias. Be skeptical about the information that you hear, and more than anything, crave the truth, even if it contradicts what you think. All right, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if this show is beneficial to you, you'll love becoming a member over at indieThinker.org/support, where you can gain access to ebooks, audiobooks, movies, documentaries, and so much more that will help you deepen your faith and entertain you along the way. So don't forget to go to indieThinker.org/support. Don't forget to check out the sponsors down below in the description of this podcast. But most importantly, go with God.